Forbes, a reproductive rights activist, and Monica Simpson, executive director of Sister Song, a national activist organization dedicated to reproductive justice for women of color. Reverend Forbes, you had 2 abortions as a teenager, one at 14 and the second at 18. How did that experience of walking into the abortion clinic shape your opinion on the matter, especially that you later became a licensed interfaith minister in Texas?
Thank you for having me. Those 2 abortions saved my life. It was without a doubt pivotal moments in my lifeline, because had I not had access to those clinics at such a crucial time in my life would have been decimated. I would not be sitting here before you right now had I not had both of those abortions.
Monica, you and other Black organizers are working to make sure Black people's needs are not ignored as the Supreme Court appears to be set to strike down Roe versus Wade. An activist points out to NBC that low-income patients and people of color already have to navigate a healthcare system that can be inattentive and discriminatory, which means they would be even less likely to get an abortion if Roe is overturned, worsening a cycle that perpetuates poverty for Black people. Now, other marginalized communities will impacted by this as well, such as queer, trans, and gender non-conforming individuals. Will you explain how intersectionality of race and sex, gender, is at the crux of this abortion issue?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today. And what's real about intersectionality and what's important about reproductive justice is that we think about not just the right to have an abortion, but the ability to access an abortion, the ability for us to think about the ways that our race as Black folks and folks of color impact the ways that we make decisions in this country. The fact that we are working against a system of white supremacy as we think about fighting for abortion access is deeply connected to this issue as well. And so we can't look at our lives or even think about our organizing from a single issue lens. We have to think about the ways in which all of our identities, all of those systems of oppression that we unfortunately have to live under and navigate in this country come together when making a very personal decision about whether or not to continue a pregnancy or not. So reproductive justice is a movement that was started by Black women because they understood that it was important for Black women's voices and for folks of color to move our experiences and our needs to the center of the conversations around sexual health and reproductive health in this country. And so what is so real right now as we are fighting this fight, right? This is something that this draft that was leaked is something that unfortunately we knew was coming because our opposition has been working very hard over the past couple of decades to move us to this moment where Roe v. Wade is in peril. And so it is important for us when we think about this again, especially as folks of color, that we see the fullness of what this really means for us right now when we think about this fight for abortion access. And that means that we have to think about not only codifying the right for that, but also ensuring that we create all that is necessary for us to be able to access that right.
Reverend Forbes, yesterday at National Action Network, I had Alexis McGill Johnson, president of Planned Parenthood, first Black woman, and we were talking about how opponents have used abortion rights to people that are religious to support their argument. They've used religion for why it should be illegal. A new report from the Pew Research Center shows that while 3/4 of white evangelicals want to mostly ban abortion, less than 1/3 of Black Protestants support similar restrictions. Overall, the study finds most Americans and most believers support some exceptions to any abortion ban, such as in cases of rape or incest. In the most recent data from the CDC in 2019, Black women had the highest rate of abortion with 24 abortions per 1,000, and Black women are 3 times more likely to die from a pregnancy-related cause than white women. How does race and religion influence someone's view of abortion?
Well, quite frankly, race has played a part in historically for Black women around issues around reproductive justice. We know that during times of slavery, Black women were mutilated, abused in the name of learning about the women's reproductive system. And so race and reproductive justice are intricately linked because from the time we were brought here as slaves, we were poked on, pulled on, and our rights to our bodily autonomy either didn't exist or barely existed. So race and abortion are intricately linked, and we're seeing that through line play out right to this day.
Monica, the Senate will hold a vote next week to codify Roe versus Wade, although the chances of it passing are very slim. How does your organization plan to continue to help women if the Supreme Court does move to end legal abortion protections?
You know, what's interesting to me when I think about what's happening at the state level, at our state level, all the way up to the federal level right now, it's really, really hard to trust and to have respect for institutions right now that are constantly putting our lives and our ability to make our own decisions about our bodies, just putting those on the line every single day. We're seeing this from Roe. We're seeing this with voting rights. We're seeing this with LGBTQ issues. Like, it is just going across the board that we are having to fight to hold on to the very protections that we have fought so hard for so many decades ago. And so what we're going to continue to do is to organize and mobilize our people around these issues. We're working from the state level all the way up to the federal level to ensure that people understand why it's important for them to be connected to this issue, understanding whether or not you are in line to do the work around voting rights or whether you're connected to economic justice or environmental justice, that this is a decision that we all need to be paying close attention to and we all need to be organizing around. We are also moving to do a national action at the state capitol in DC for Juneteenth. We are talking about bringing Black bodies and Black power together and to ensure that Black people have a voice and an opportunity to talk about what is happening here and to put our faces, our bodies on the line for this work, because we know that our communities are the most impacted by this when we think about laws like Roe being reversed. And so we are moving people into direct action again towards that national action for Juneteenth in DC. We're also doing local actions every single day, almost at our state level. So we encourage people to be connected to their organizations on the ground in their state. But this is the time for all people to be directly connected to this issue. We have to talk about it in our churches. We have to talk about it with families. We have to talk about it across the board because our lives are at stake.
Reverend Forbes, we're out of time, but I wanted to ask you this. Do you feel that as we move toward dealing with this issue, that the intersectionality of it is important, of getting not only women's groups, but LGBT, as we move toward dealing with this issue, that the intersectionality of it is important, of getting not only women's groups, but LGBT groups and civil rights groups and groups that deal with immigration across the board, because if this is the case, if we do see the Supreme Court rule, this will then send all rights, potentially all rights, back to states to decide. And that is a threat to everyone. Do you see it important enough that all the different constituency groups that may be different silos come together to stop it here? Otherwise, it can come to every other area of concern of civil and human rights in this country, going back to a states' rights model.
Absolutely. Listen, the issue at stake is justice. And if we don't act, every single individual act right now, get out there in the streets and protest and fight for justice, you better believe that if it goes back to states' rights, every single social justice issue will be at stake. It is an all hands on deck. It is sounding the alarm. We are in crisis now.
All hands on deck, all feet on the ground. Reverend Erika Forbes, Monica Simpson, thank you both for being